All right, friends, let's dive into grade 4, unit 7, quick practice. So you can see here for lesson 1, you just have 2 slides and we're just getting used to this routine. The student leader would say, boys and girls, let's compare 1/3 or 1/5. So 1/3 compared to 1/5. Is 1/3 greater than 1/5 or is 1/3 less than 1/5? Think about it. The class has this visual if they need it. The student leader waits till most students have like a thumbs up or some sort of a signal. And then the student leader says class, and the whole class would say 1/3. And the student leader would drag the pink bar to show where 1/3 lines up. And so they would ask or say turn and talk, call on one student, however you want to do it. But boys and girls, how do you know? We call on someone. I know that 1/3 is greater than 1/5 because it is divided into less parts, making each part larger. You can delete this orange box and use the description that is there. Or I know that 1/5 is less than 1/3 because that whole is divided into more parts, making each part smaller. Boys and girls, turn and tell your neighbor, what did you just hear him say? So you can always make it more interactive than just calling on one person, but keep in mind that quick practice is intended to be quick. The first part is a choral response. The second part of this, there is some justification needed. It's up to you how you want to do that. Calling on one, moving on, but keep it to 5 minutes. The next slide, then you're going to compare lots of different unit fractions. So the student leader can choose. They can say 1/2 compared to 1/8. Think about it, class. And the class would say 1/2 is greater than 1/8. Boys and girls, all move the stick, prove it. Okay, so I can see where 1/2 is. I can see where 1/8 is. Turn and tell your neighbor how you know. Okay, so the larger the denominator, the smaller the piece. The smaller the denominator, the larger the piece, if that's how you choose to go. Boys and girls, compare 1/6 and 1/8. Think about it. Class, 1/6 is greater than 1/8. Boys and girls, I'll move the pink stick here. Now compare. Turn and talk. The larger the denominator, the smaller the piece. Or when the whole is cut into less parts, the pieces are bigger. So you'll go that direction, but make sure you mix it up. That sometimes it's 1/9 compared to 1/6, so it's not always greater than. The answer would be less than as well. Then for lessons 2 through 6, you're getting all the different colored slides. Remember here on the left that the blue slides then are all one day. The purple slides would be one day, the yellow slide. So each new day gets a new color of a slide all the way to lesson 7. Okay, so here we have, let's compare 1/10 is greater or less than 1/6. Think about it, class. And again, they would have that we can use these groups. So we can see that there's 1/10 or 1/6, and there's 1/10. Which one's greater? Class, 1/6. Let's say it together. 1/10 then is less than 1/6. I can move that purple bar and we can talk about how we know. Very similar to what we just did, but now we can talk about it with the non-unit fractions. So look below. Compare using groups of each kind of unit fractions, 2/10 and 2/6. So now let's compare. If 1/10 is less than 1/6, how would you compare 2/10 and 2/6? So let's try 1/6, 2/6, and 1/10, 2/10. Class, let's say it together. 2/10 is less than 2/6. What about 3/10 and 3/6? Okay, so you can give multiple groups here so they can see that we're getting more of those unit fractions, but the same comparison stays true. So that's for the blue, that first blue side, and then it's 3/10 is greater or less than 5/10. Okay, so I like this visual a lot because now you have the transparent slides. So now I can actually make these groups. So if I have 3/10, I can slide this down. I can cover up 3/10. I can cover up 5/10, and I can say, boys and girls, think about it. Class, 3/10 is greater than, 3/10 is less than 5/10. Boys and girls, turn and talk to your neighbor because now look, it changed a bit. We're not just talking about the unit fraction. They're both tenths, so we're going to compare the denominators. The size of the pieces are the same, but 5/10 has more of those pieces. Okay, so we can compare using other unequal groups. So how about 8/10 compared to 6/10? Class, think about it. 8/10 compared to 6/10. Class, 8/10 is greater than 6/10. Say that whole comparison. Let's prove it. The student leader can do this. The teacher can do this. Always we prefer student leader if possible, right? So there you have 5 or 8, and there you have 6. And now we can see that 8/10 is more than 6/10. Now you'll repeat that every day. So you repeat it using the break apart stick here where you can line it up. Notice that it's always, the bar model is still next to that number line, which is very visually helpful. And then you'll have that second slide in which you use the covers. Okay, so once you get to lesson 7 and 8, we change, right? So here we have, do 3/5 and 4/10 have the same numerator and are the same denominator? Class, neither. Okay, they don't have either. So the answer is no. So how do we compare them? Class, we make both denominators 10. Okay, or they could say we find a common denominator. So find the equivalent for 3/5 with a denominator of 10. So 3/5 with a denominator of 10, class, 6/10. We can multiply the numerator and the denominator of 3/5 by 2. Let's compare then. 6/10 compared to 4/10, class, greater than. 6/10 is greater than 4/10. Why? Because there's more pieces, more of the same size piece. So for this middle part, you decide how you want to say that, right? So find the equivalent for 3/5 with a denominator of 10. This could be one of those times that kids use a whiteboard to quickly figure out, if I have 3/5, what would I do to 3/5 to get to tenths? Class, multiply by 2/2. Class, 3/5 by 2/2 equals 6/10. So you could do it that way and then delete the cover, but you want them to come up with, if I need to make a common denominator of 10, what would I multiply 3/5 by? Class, 2/2. Class, what would be my answer? 6/10. Class, continue the comparison. 6/10 is greater than 4/10. Turn and tell your neighbor why. Okay, so let's go to another one. Do 3/2 and 5/4 have the same numerator or denominator? No. So how do we compare them? Find an equivalent fraction. In this case, we want to find a denominator of 4. So I have 3/2. Boys and girls, what would I multiply 3/2 by in order to get fourths? Class, 2/2. Boys and girls, 3/2 times 2/2 equals, class, 6/4. Let's continue our comparison. 6/4 compared to 5/4, class, greater than. Boys and girls, why? Turn and talk, call on one person. Boys and girls, why? Because 1/4 is greater than 5/1/4. And then we're finished. So you can continue on in that manner. It's really just continuing to come up with the idea of, let's notice they don't have a common denominator. Let's notice that one of the denominators is a factor of the other, or a multiple of the other. We could say it both ways, and then come up with that equivalent fraction. Okay, so you have lots of examples here. Then you get to lessons 9 and things change just a little bit. Do 3/8 and 2/5 have the same numerator and denominator? No. How do we compare them? Class, multiply the numerator and the denominator of each fraction by the other denominator. So it's a little bit wordy there for me, but you can decide how you want to say it. So essentially we're saying, boys and girls, I would maybe add some questions here. Do they have the same numerator or the same denominator? No. Is one a factor of the other? No. Boys and girls, how do we compare them? Multiply the both of the denominators. So we're going to multiply 8 by 5 and 5 by 8. Boys and girls. So if we do this, 5 times 3 equals, class, 15. 5 times 8 equals, class, 40. So 3/8 equals 15/40. So we took 3/8, we multiplied by 5/5, which equals 15/40. 8 times 2 equals, class, 16. 8 times 5 equals, class, 40. 2/5 equals then 16/40. Let's compare. 15/40 compared to 16/40. Class, less than. Why? Because 15/40 unit fractions is less than 16/40 unit fractions. So there's a lot to be said on this slide. Decide how you can get in your own groove. How can you do it where students are engaged and you're moving at a fast page? They're thinking of the answer, they say it. They think of the answer, they say it. Okay, so as long as you can get your own rhythm where students are seeing the visuals and they know what to multiply by, that's going to create the automaticity that we're hoping for. Okay, so that initial question is probably of the most important. So you're going to do that now for lessons 9 and 10. Notice that you have 4 different examples to go through for each day and then another 4. You have 5 minutes for this. It was not intended that they do this in their notebook. This is not journal work, morning ringer work. However, if you need to add a component of that to help speed it up, possibly. I find that when you do it in a notebook, it actually takes longer. We're trying to build automaticity and mental math. We're doing this at a very rapid pace. Then you get to 11 and through 13. So let's notice what changes. Let's compare. Do 7/4 and 11/16 have the same numerator or denominator? No. So I can ask some other questions. Is one a factor of the other? No. So how do we compare them? Use a common denominator. So now we're going to find a common multiple of these two numbers. Boys and girls, what's the common multiple of 4 and 6? Class, 12. So we're going to multiply both of these in order to get 12. What would we multiply 4 by? Class, 3. What would we multiply 6 by? Class, 2. And you can see that those answers are right there. So let's try it. So 3 times 7 equals 21. 3 times 4 equals, class, 12. So 7/4 is equivalent to 21/12. 2 times 11 equals 22. 2 times 6 equals 12. So 11/6 is equivalent to 22/12. Let's compare. 21/12 compared to 22/12. Class, less than, and then y. Okay, so once again, lots to say there, lots to go through, but hopefully as you get a rhythm, your students will get a rhythm too. Notice that I asked a couple questions that weren't here in the script there of do they have the same numerator and denominator, but let's notice what's different here is that not only are they're not factors of each other, but do they have a common multiple? Okay, so if the least common multiple would be 12 versus the ones that we did up here, multiplying them would get us there faster. Okay, so it's easier to get 5 times 6 is 30 than to come up with the least common multiple. In this case, we're coming up with the least common multiple. So you'll do that now, my friends, from 11 through 13, and then you're finished. Enjoy, and remember, make it your own. This is about building automaticity with the skills that are really tough for kids. So have fun. Take care.